What's up, hippo lovers? Laming is a part of Age of Empires 2, and I think it shouldn't be. We will go through my argumentation and we'll try to take a look at what pro-lamers are saying, and I'm trying to debunk that as good as I can. Some people don't know what I'm talking about. Laming is basically stealing or walling in or killing some resources that technically belong to your opponent. So killing deer, stealing a boar, or maybe walling in some gold, stealing some sheep are the very typical things. What do we want to have in a game? If we look at anything, it's basically other sports, other esports. What are our goals? Why do we play it? Why do we watch it? It's for entertainment. We want some fairness. We want fun for players, not only for watchers. And we want competitiveness. And what is laming really doing? Is it entertainment? Some say yes, so I can see that argument. For some people, it isn't because of the results of it. Is it fair? Not at all. Is it fun for players? They hate it. If you lame, some players love it, I know. And competitiveness, it is absolutely bad for it. Famous laming cases, obviously Hidden Cup 3 finals got completely destroyed by it. Battle of Africa 2 finals, Colosseum, I just rewatched game number 2. Leary laming a boar of Teto. Game is over there in an anticipated great final, and one game is simply instantly lost because of a tiny move. Then we had Champions League, Decider Hera vs Viper, the Spanish War, 2 sheep gone. Hera had to wall, Viper had the map control with his scouts, could go for strategies that Hera couldn't go for, and it had 2 semifinals, Viper, Leary, Arabia game, 2 sheep stolen, Leary even after that said that forced him into farms, forced him into a later siege workshop, later fletching, later castle age timing, and Viper wins it early castle age. And we are simply playing on such a high level that minus 2 sheep, minus a boar and 2 sheep instantly can decide games, especially if we have something like Mongols included as well. Argument for laming. It's part of the game. Well, rule changes are something we have in every sport. Mixed martial arts. Heavy changes over the last 25 years. Soccer just recently introduced VR. 24/7 shot clock in basketball. Formula 1, every year they have massive changes. So I think that's not really an argument. The question is like, can't we do better than what we have in the game? Should it be like this? Or can we do something about it? Only because it's part of the game, I think that's not a justification to keep it in there. Just remember how many changes we had in AoE2. We have forbidden deep fish laming, we have forbidden straggler laming, that is basically trees of your opponent around the TC, and other changes, right? What else do we have? Balance changes. It's part of the game that walls were too strong. It's part of the game that walls were too cheap. It's part of the game that Korean's tower rush was completely imba, and so forth and so on. And we had constant changes over and over again, and to simply make it a better game. And shouldn't that be the goal? I think so. Next argument. It makes Dark Age more exciting. Probably. But at what cost? Like, do we accept that the game is ruined after Dark Age? That then the game itself probably lost in entertainment value, I would say. What else could we do? Can't we do something better to make Dark Age more exciting? Production quality has to be better. Throw in stats. We have to introduce civilizations. Talk about something else. Like, if Dark Age is too boring for the viewer, then we have to come with something that doesn't destroy the game itself, in my opinion. Good thing, Empire Wars. We're skipping Dark Age. Obviously, not everyone is fan of Empire Wars, but laming, even if we had wars, wouldn't be an argument there, right? If it was like, if the action's instantly starting, we don't need to lame, but we're not having boss there. I think something we really need to explore is starting with more villagers in a normal RM start. Plus 6 villagers up to, I think maybe plus 3, plus 4 could be something reasonable. It will change some of the balance. Obviously, Chinese might be overpowered, Mayans losing some of their value, yada yada. That's something to figure out, but I think we have to do something and explore that a bit more, in my opinion. To make Dark Age more entertaining. Because that's a big problem of Age of Empires, I can see that. It's fair. Both players can do it. No. Simply not correct. Boar spawns can be at the front. Nowadays, most maps are designed to have the boars/elephants in the back, but not every single time. Sheep still can spawn at the front. Deer can spawn at the front, although that's not really important. Then you have luck and scouting. Sometimes small black area where one cow is inside. Your opponent can scout it. You cannot scout it. There's just so much randomness, and yeah, in infinite amount of games, it is fair, but tournaments never have infinite amount of games. So in a best of 7, there can be huge variance. It's not luck, it's skill. That's probably true if you are below 1500, I would say. Because every single top 200 player gets a boar with 1 or 2 hits, following a scout from the opponent to your TC. Yeah, it is a skill, but if everyone has that skill, should we still call it a necessary skill that elevates a player over another one? I don't think so, because it simply isn't. It can compensate for a tough matchup and tough maps. I can see that one. If you have an unfortunate matchup, hypothetical, Turks struggle against Britons because they can't do well against their crossbows. Win rate 70% to 30%. Now if Turks lame, let's say it comes up to 50-50. What happens if Britons lame? Do we give the 20% points to them? Then it's 19-10. So, like, do we have variance to make it an even game, but also destroy the game at the other side? I'm not the biggest fan of it. It adds identity to civs. Vietnamese, Goth, Mongols. Well, this is simply something I absolutely agree with. Yeah, I like it. I like it. You can see the TC, you have more scouting, Goth can go and send a villager, and most of my arguments here are for scout laming, right? Villager laming is a bigger investment. Sending the villager over, laming the boar, you're actually losing resources. With the scout, not so much. Can force a restart is one of the arguments. And that one really confuses me. What is the goal of a restart? The goal of a restart is to reduce variance. And laming is increasing variance. So a tournament that has laming and restarts, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't show a lot of consistency. Because what is your goal? Do you want to be wild? Then you have to have laming, or like it improves it. But if we have restarts every time someone lames, or sometimes when someone lames, then we are going into the other direction again. And that's really confusing to me, and I don't see that as a strong one. It's an investment. Yeah, in some form. But what's the relation though? Like, what are you giving up? If you just send your scout over to the other side pretty early, see if you can get to sheep and then go back. And if both players are doing it, like, it's just so random. Does one find 2 sheep? Does the other one not find 2 sheep? Do you run into a boar? Do you not run into a boar? If there are front boar spawns. I think then we are moving more into the direction of playing dice or rolling dice. So the investment with the villager, something I can absolutely see. The investment with the scout, not that high. You're giving up some of your own exploration, but in Age of Empires you have enough time to get that. To still go to the front after 3 minutes, not scouting your opponent. Take 6 minutes, scout your own base, or not finding anything. Scout your own base for 6 minutes, then go back and see what they're up to. It creates unique scenarios. I can see that. I can see that. The question is, which ones? And do we want them? Do we want the wild scenario 3 against 1 boar? Do we want to have 1 player playing against Goth, having 0 boars against 2 boars? Do we want players to come up with strategies to come back into games after being lamed? Do we want to see players heavily exploit situations that they only get into every 50th game because they get 3 boars against 1 boar? Yeah, it is different, but is it great for what our goals in Age of Empires are? Is it entertainment? Is it fair? Is it fun for the players? And is it increasing competitiveness? And I would say no. Arguments and other stuff that people are saying in favor of laming that I agree with. It gives a bigger role or power to the scout. I can see that, right? It's not only exploring the map, it's not only the first fighting unit, but also it gives you some identity. It gives a difference between the eagle, the scout. So I like that. And it punishes deer pushing, right? If some people completely see, okay, deer is close to me, then they just push it in and can take care of their sheep and boar later. If the trend ever goes into no boar laming and no sheep laming, which I'm probably not a big fan of, then deer have to be considered differently. Either they have to be more fair, more consistent for sure. That either both players can push them or both players can't. Most likely in favor of both players can't. So if we go for no laming rule, probably we want to erase deer. At least that's what I'm kind of thinking. Because it just, yeah, you can push deer and your opponent not stealing the sheep. You're getting away with a lot of greed, which shouldn't be in the game either. That was it, and those were my thoughts. I know that I have very strong feelings about that, and I know that other people have a lot of other strong feelings about them. I did ask my chat to come up with a list and the arguments earlier. Where do you agree with me? Where do you disagree? And it's very likely that my chat and I together did miss some points there. So write it down. I want your thoughts. And what's the way? How should we approach tournaments in the future that are not Empire Wars? I don't really know. At the moment, it feels like +4 villagers and no deer. Feels like a reasonable option to me. Then probably ban Chinese. It will come with some downsides. We probably have to give the scout then +1 line of sight or something. It gets a bit wild. It gets tricky to figure out. But I want to know what your thoughts are on laming. That's it from me. Goodbye, Hippo lovers.